And that
Okay,
is
just
totally...
let Jeff go back at you one more time.
You know, I think, you know, that way of telling the story belies an intrinsic
Let
him make his point, please. Let him make his point.
An intrinsic anti-urbanism. It's going back, harking back to this era when we were a more rural society and saying it was so much better when we were rural. The reality is around the whole world, cities are expanding, and those places that used to be rural hinterlands and suburbs are being urbanized, and actually I think that's very positive ecologically because density is creating incredible resource efficiencies in the world, or at least the potential for them.
You think building up agricultural land is increasing efficiency?
I think concentrating people in cities is. Yes.
Hang on, let me hear from Bruce and then Mattis on this.
Well, I would just say, Madeline, it probably has less to do with the population in and around the GTA than it does about estate lots and the size and density that these folks are moving into. Urban sprawl is little to do with population as it is to the fact that we are building a car economy, we're building highways, and we are deciding to forego really good density.
It has to do with numbers of people, and here we are again ignoring the fact that we're adding 1 million people to the population, and about 40%
Nobody
of them...
said ignoring, no, Madeline. Make no mistake. No, I did not. I came on right away and said overpopulation. Madeline, hear me out. I started out by saying overpopulation is clearly a problem. You cannot have exponential growth of the population forevermore. That's clearly has to be part of the problem. But the fact is if we were to stop population growth right now and carry on with our current rate of consumption, we would have a problem within the next 100 months, a serious problem that could actually lead to catastrophic climate change issues.
Yeah, but
okay, hang on. Forgive me, Madeline. You've had a good kick at this. Hang on. Let me hear from Mattis in a second. Mattis, please, your turn.
Yeah, I think the wonderful thing about the sustainability game, global sustainability, is that it's a game that everybody loses or everybody wins. So it's not an either or an or. And I think if we take strategies that are inclusive and build a positive future for everybody, we are much more likely to develop cooperation. If we just cement our privileges and say we are now rich and we build a gate around us and the hell with the rest of us, it will not be a very inviting piece for others to participate. So I think if we want to address the population issue, which I think is crucial to the well-being of women, their children, their educational outcomes, etc., we need to take a compassionate approach of saying where we need to put our money is to invest every dollar in women to have better education rather than in gates and tanks and securing our privileges at the cost of others.
Okay. Could I say, just to support
Stephen, please.
part what Mathis is saying is that absolutely Canada cannot build walls around our country, and especially with catastrophic climate change that is coming, we're going to see environmental refugees that we have never seen before. So we really have to start here in Canada figuring out how we are going to support other countries who are going to be overwhelmed by environmental refugees, whether it's from typhoons in Bangladesh or hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico. There's going to be massive human movements that we've never seen before. We're going to have to figure out how to cope with that. So but we have to act in Canada. We have to try and act responsibly in Canada as well.
Okay, Mattis, let me bring you back in here for a second and try a sort of a for instance with you. If somebody lives in a country such as Somalia, they obviously are consuming in that country far fewer resources than they would be if they moved to Canada. But if that person moves to Canada, they then move into a high consumer society, they change their habits and so on. Is that an argument against keeping immigration rates where they are and an argument in favor of reducing immigration for environmental reasons?
I mean, let me ping-pong it back. I mean, it's an ethical proposition. It essentially says that a person alive today, an existing person alive today, has less rights than a non-existing person that just happened to be born to a Canadian today. Why is that the case? Why do we give more rights to a person that does not exist compared to one that exists? So that's the ethical challenge.
Madeline, you want to comment on that?
I'm not quite sure I followed all that, but I agree with you that if you bring people from low-consuming countries to Canada, where by definition you have a high footprint because we need to heat our houses and we need to import a certain amount of food, so we are bringing people from lower footprint countries to Canada, where they invariably aspire to our higher footprint lifestyle. I don't see, if you're looking at global greenhouse gas production, why that would be a good idea.
Bruce wants in on this.
Increase.
Well, I would just say again, we're attacking the symptom. The fact of the matter is people should aspire for a better future for their children. They will aspire to have the things in life that we all have right now. The question is it an equitable use of the resources and consumption? And this idea that we should stop immigration in case, heaven forbid, they become consumption gluts like North America.
You're not addressing the problem.
Is not addressing the problem.
The problem is reducing that consumption level here in Canada, and I think you said it yourself, Madeline. The problem is that we all consume too much here, and therefore you argue that an incremental one consumer is the problem. Actually, the real problem is that consumption level.
But my question is, why is it desirable for people in Canada to force them, to sort of live in densification, to lose their natural landscapes? What is the advantage? Why do we want to do that? Why?
Actually, densification protects the natural landscape.
It protects it maybe, but not relative to not increasing the population in the first place.
But let's just talk about this rural versus urban dimension that you brought into it. People in rural North America consume vast quantities more, factors more, than people in urban Canada and the United States, because they have mass transit systems here. We have recycling programs here. We have district heating systems here. All of the benefits there with you in Ottawa are only there because of the density and scale of your city.
But look, even a city like Toronto can't deal with its garbage. It's getting so big it can't deal with its own garbage, and it has to export it. You can't ignore that these things are happening. You can't ignore that agricultural land is being built up.
Nobody is ignoring it. I'll
Well,
say it again. Nobody's ignoring it. Everybody has said
okay,
it's part
downplaying
of the
it,
puzzle.
downplaying it.
Well,
Part of a puzzle, part of a problem that we should address front and center. Population should
not
be
front and center.
Yes,
not
it
when
is.
you have
Okay.
100 months.
I think one reality is that the amounts of migrants we see right now, or legal immigrants that come to Canada, are nothing compared to the millions and millions of refugees that we will see in a destabilized world. If we want to maximize the impact of our dollars we invest in terms of producing human well-being, it's best invested in helping women have access to, for example, family planning and education around the world. Through that, we generate much more well-being, we generate much more stability, we generate much more environmental beneficial outcomes than if we invested in securing just bigger tanks and bigger walls and other kinds of exclusion technologies.